I read all your books.
All I did was give you the raft. You had to inflate it yourself.
You are so amazing.
Okay, crazy, move it along.
Well, it looks like I'm going to be your new dad. What's your book about?
It teaches people how to release painful memories.
John Farley is introduced as a man who has completely reinvented himself, transforming years of childhood insecurity into a confident public persona, built around self-help, motivation, and personal empowerment. As an adult, he has achieved professional success by teaching others how to overcome fear and trauma, yet his own past remains unresolved. Beneath the polished surface of his career lies the lingering shadow of his high school years, a time defined by humiliation, fear, and relentless intimidation. His life takes an unexpected turn when he is called back to his hometown, a place he deliberately left behind, believing distance and success had finally freed him from old wounds. Returning home forces John to confront memories he has spent years suppressing. The familiar streets, the old school buildings, and the people who once defined his identity all resurface with uncomfortable clarity. What begins as a routine visit quickly becomes emotionally destabilizing when John learns that his mother, Beverly Farley, has fallen in love and is preparing to remarry. On the surface, this should be a joyful moment, a sign that his mother has found happiness and companionship later in life. However, the happiness turns into disbelief and panic when John discovers the identity of her fiancé. The man Beverly plans to marry is Jasper Woodcock, John's former physical education teacher. During John's teenage years, Woodcock was a figure of absolute terror, a cruel authority figure who used humiliation, intimidation, and physical punishment as tools of control. To John and many of his classmates, Woodcock represented everything unfair and abusive about unchecked power in a school environment. He was feared, mocked behind his back, and remembered as a nightmare no one wanted to relive. For John, this was not just an uncomfortable coincidence. It felt like fate reopening a wound that had never truly healed. As John processes this revelation, his inner conflict becomes the emotional core of the story. On one side is his adult identity, the successful author who teaches forgiveness, resilience, and emotional growth. On the other is the frightened teenager he once was, powerless against a man who made his daily life miserable. The contradiction between who John claims to be and how he actually feels creates a constant tension. He wants to believe he has grown beyond his past, yet the mere presence of Woodcock reduces him to the same anxious, defensive state he experienced years ago. Beverly Farley is portrayed as a warm, optimistic woman who genuinely believes she has found love with Jasper. She sees him as disciplined, strong, and dependable, qualities that appeal to her sense of stability. Beverly is largely unaware of the extent of John's suffering during high school, having never witnessed Woodcock's behavior firsthand. This gap in understanding becomes a central emotional obstacle as John struggles to explain his trauma without sounding irrational, jealous, or controlling. To Beverly, John's objections appear exaggerated, rooted in old grudges rather than present reality. Jasper Woodcock, meanwhile, presents himself as a changed man. Older, calmer, and seemingly more self-aware, he insists that his harsh teaching methods were simply part of a different era, a time when discipline was valued over sensitivity. He claims to have grown since then, suggesting that age and experience have softened his approach to life. Yet, subtle hints throughout his interactions with John suggest that his personality has not changed as much as he claims. His passive-aggressive remarks, controlling tendencies, and thinly veiled condescension imply that the bully still exists beneath the surface. John becomes increasingly convinced that his mother is making a terrible mistake. His concern is not only rooted in personal resentment, but also in fear that Beverly may eventually become a victim of the same controlling behavior he once endured.
Determined to protect her, John embarks on a mission to expose Woodcock's true nature.
What begins as a sincere attempt to safeguard his mother quickly spirals into a series of obsessive, often misguided actions driven by unresolved anger and paranoia. As John investigates Woodcock's past and present behavior, the story leans heavily into comedic situations built on exaggeration, misunderstandings, and escalating conflict. John's attempts to sabotage the relationship range from awkward confrontations to elaborate schemes, many of which backfire spectacularly. These moments highlight the irony of a self-help guru who cannot apply his own teachings to his personal life. His public image as a calm, enlightened figure contrasts sharply with his increasingly erratic behavior behind the scenes. The humor in the story often emerges from this contrast between perception and reality. To outsiders, John appears irrational and immature, while Woodcock comes across as patient and reasonable. This inversion places John in the role of the antagonist from the community's perspective, intensifying his frustration and sense of isolation. Each failed attempt to reveal Woodcock's flaws only strengthens Jasper's position and pushes Beverly further away from her son emotionally. Despite the comedic tone, the narrative consistently returns to the theme of lingering trauma and its long-term impact. John's reactions are not simply petty or jealous. They are rooted in years of fear, shame, and powerlessness. The story subtly explores how childhood experiences can shape adult behavior, especially when those experiences are never properly addressed. John's inability to move forward highlights the difference between intellectual understanding and emotional healing. The cast plays a crucial role in bringing these dynamics to life. Sian William Scott portrays John Farley with a balance of insecurity and bravado, capturing both the comedic and vulnerable aspects of the character. Susan Sarandon brings warmth and sincerity to Beverly, making her desire for happiness both understandable and sympathetic. Billy Bob Thornton's portrayal of Jasper Woodcock blends charm and menace, creating a character who is amusing on the surface yet deeply unsettling underneath. Together, their performances drive the story's emotional and comedic momentum. As the wedding approaches, tensions escalate rapidly. John's obsession consumes him, affecting his professional life and personal relationships. He becomes increasingly reckless, willing to embarrass himself publicly if it means stopping the marriage. These actions force the audience to question whether John is genuinely trying to protect his mother or simply seeking closure for his own unresolved pain. The line between selflessness and selfishness becomes increasingly blurred. The climax of the story revolves around a final confrontation in which long-buried truths are exposed. John is pushed to articulate his experiences clearly, not as exaggerated complaints, but as genuine accounts of emotional abuse. This moment serves as both a personal breakthrough and a test of whether the people around him are willing to listen. The resolution emphasizes the importance of confronting the past directly rather than allowing it to quietly dictate present choices. In its conclusion, the story reinforces the idea that personal growth is not linear and that success in one area of life does not automatically translate to emotional maturity in another. John's journey is less about defeating his former tormentor and more about reclaiming control over his own narrative. Whether through reconciliation, acceptance, or painful honesty, he is forced to confront the reality that healing requires more than motivational slogans. The film blends comedy with uncomfortable emotional truths, using exaggerated humor to explore serious themes such as bullying, authority, and the lasting effects of childhood trauma. While the situations are often absurd, the emotional core remains grounded in relatable experiences. Many viewers recognize the fear of revisiting places and people tied to their past, making John's struggle resonate beyond its comedic framework. By the end, the story leaves the audience reflecting on forgiveness, accountability, and the complexity of personal change. It challenges the notion that time alone heals all wounds and suggests that confronting pain, however awkward or messy, is sometimes the only path forward. Through humor, conflict, and emotional confrontation, the narrative delivers a character-driven exploration of how the past continues to shape the present, even when we believe we have moved on.